Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey, good evening. It's Saturday, and I just wanted to get with everybody and give an update. I think it's pretty powerful information that we have. We've got some components that we're going to talk about of where we are that are being openly talked about. The internet's been abuzz lately about some specific things. I think it was yesterday morning, the night before, Thursday night, late, early, could be Baghdad time, but people started getting some information about specific things that are to be expected, and we all know that as time gets closer that Iraq's going to make some moves. We come off of the WTO meetings, and we all have questions. It's concerns, but not necessarily, but the interesting thing is there are some components. I'll touch a couple bases, is because surprisingly no data coming from the WTO about Iraq on the back end is interesting. I'll get to it. But interestingly enough, though, we have a couple other things, and I want to get to this particular case and start is to let everybody know that everybody out there is completely appreciated. All of us totally enjoy the fact that we have a large community. It's growing, and our Patreon and our Discord chat room is on fire typically, and we have really grown a lot, and it's all because of the fact that we have a lot of people that are looking for quality information and real information that's got integrity, and we say that with a lot of experience. Okay, so but the cool part here too is that recently we have had a few members come in and talk to us about specific things, and this one particular member who's been around not terribly long, but he's given some of his input because he is a British citizen, and he's also an Arab citizen, and so his ability to translate, as you've heard in the past, is really quite interesting. He has a brief comment to us tonight, and we'll get to that. But I just want you to know that if you guys haven't checked this out yet, we have Patreon, www.patreon, that's patreon.com/MM&D crew, CREW, okay, MM and crew. You guys can come see us, check us out, and see if you want to visit that Discord chat room, because a lot of information comes in there. Sometimes we'll do audios and other things that you might miss. But the one thing is that you have research that is really kind of specific, and you have the ability to use your own buzzwords in a search bar to be able to say, like, well, what did Militiaman say? What did Super Samson say? What was Gigi doing in Discord? Or Greg, our admins, or Pompey Peter, or even Petra? What were they saying live? And so that's part of that equation. And others, many others. Sunkissed, bless her, she's in the background. Bethany, fascinating, is Brian's place. We try to post a spiritual post from him specifically. We have rules in our Discord chat room, so don't take anything personally. We just try to abide by rules, and so keep that in mind. But again, www.patreon.com/MMANDCREW is the place to go check us out. So anyway, Governor of the Central Bank, Al-Alaq, right? He hasn't been talking too terribly much recently. We all do know that he has told us that he's going to have the deletion of the zeros project that still exists, and it hasn't gone away. And we're not going to get into that, but the bottom line is his calls are for making the private sector collection through electronic payments. That's part of that headline. That's out today. I think it was about 7 hours ago or so. Could be 14, but by the time I get it. Anyway, it's about a workshop, okay? The existence of great interest and interaction with the Prime Minister, Shia al-Sudani. So Alak and Shia al-Sudani are urging the state institutions to do what? They're going to pay electronic payments for funds collected from the state institutions. And what does that do? Well, it supports the value of their currency into the future, because if nobody's tapping in and skimming off the top because of electronic payments, the coffers get a little bit fuller. So ultimately, they're suggesting that there's been success in the electronic payment systems. They go on to say the figures that they attained at this stage reflected all state institutions and provided electronic levies, and the size of funds indicates success. So in other words, they've done it, they're proving it, it's working, they're ready to go. It says that they're expressing hope that the circulation of application will expand to include all private sectors. Well, there you go, all private sectors. So they're going to try to use the same system for where they're headed. Where are they headed? They're headed to the private sector. So that's a fascinating article. I think I covered everything on that. Basically, too, though, that what's going on here is that the electronic system will actually bring in the cash from the citizens, because they're going to need to have that money in place when the change happens. So they're going to have to use the electronic system. So if you're not going to use the electronic system, basically the cash that you're using on a regular basis is going to become a lot less in amounts, in totality. So that they're working on those projects. So that's big. It's underway, and I think they're way further along than most people realize. And I think you'll see that here before we get done. This article is basically, the quote of the headline is, Iraq is looking forward to joining the World Trade Organization. Well, no kidding. We've been waiting for that. However, what are they saying? This was yesterday. The gentleman that really went to bat for Iraq is talking. He says, the Saudi representative, his name is Sakur al-Mubel. He's basically talking that this accession faced many problems and challenges, the most recent of which was the failure to pay the dues for joining the Observer Organization. But if you have to pay attention and read the article, it says the announcement of the government program by Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani began work again on the possibility of Iraq joining this organization, as 2 sessions took place and a dialogue was held with the organization, which is the WTO, by the Iraqi negotiating team headed by the Minister of Commerce, Athir al-Fawari, which included all the relevant Iraqi ministries and bodies. So, okay, that's enough of that said. But one key here is that most important of which were the files of goods and services, trades and services, etc., as well as the legislation that the Iraqi economic reform team in the Prime Minister's office would carry out. So they basically have the framework and the legislation for the World Organization. The latter part, that goes on to talk about harmonizing laws, major economic player in the world level. Iraq is going to be a major player, and they talk about this. But he says, we believe that this meeting will achieve a progress in achieving government's aspirations regarding accession in an accelerated manner. So the Saudis' efforts are still positive about the fact that they have. And you're going to also find that in an article too, that Iraq, and I think it's in the China Roundtable on the WTO site. If you want to Google and you find the roundtable, do a Control F key, look for the word Q, and you'll see what I'm talking about, is that Iraq and other countries are still in the queue for accession. And I'm going to show that that's going to be the case even as of last night. But here, a component of one of the videos that we just did, I think it was the other day, not yesterday, the day before, I mentioned that right after the MC-13, Iraq will submit its initial market access offers on goods and services and prepare for holding the third working party that would set the stage for negotiations with member states. I have to say that, you know, they threw that in 2 days ago, because remember what I was saying, there was some contradictions. So it was like they weren't really consistent with what they were saying about the accession. But here I would have to say is that it was an indicator. They were on the fence. Is it going to happen or is it going to happen? We haven't heard anything bad specifically, but we have heard that there's discussion, and there was discussion about 22 countries. I was only kind of talking about 6 to 8, and I got a little bit of questioning on that respect. But you'll go to that WTO document and you'll find this one particular sentence that specifically says that 22 countries were still in discussion for accession. And this particular article says that they're in the queue. So in the queue means that, hey, they're being somewhat evasive about it because of, maybe they have to be, because of the nature of the impact. Timor-Leste and Comoros were not big money makers in the world. They're not going to move and shake anything. My view is Iraq being a key component to what we've all said numerous times, a savior, if you will, of the financial system. At 1310, it's not going to fly. But if you were to have all boats rise with the tide, and Iraq has a real effective exchange rate that does go back to that 1980 era, it's going to have some power. And if you remember what we talked about in our videos too, is that, and in the articles that you can find in Patreon, where I told you to go, you'll see that the World Bank reminded people that we have to be careful in the near future. World Bank in the world says that there will be shocks, and there could be shocks. Well, if Iraq changes from 1310 to significantly different, that could have a power effect, and it could have global shocks. So keep that in mind. It says the central bank here in this article, quote, the central bank announces the increase in size of its reserve to more than $100 billion. Well, we all know that they had $100 billion, last year, but they haven't told you how much more than $100 billion. The bottom line is, and the key thing is that they have $100 billion, which is enough for them to change the value of their currency, in my view. Could they have 200? Could they have 300? There's a lot of people that stole a lot of money. They have a lot of assets overseas. We know that Interpol talked about 180 billion here. The United States talked about numbers, but the point is, Iraq has not only have an oil revenue, the rent they call it, based off oil, which, by the way, oil I think has been close to 80 to 83 bucks a barrel, which is significantly more than 70. So they're getting flush and more flush with cash. And what does it all go to? Just the oil in itself, they talk about, is supporting the value of their currency, the strength of the dinar. And here it says, the central bank attributed the increase in Iraq reserves of the dollar to be the basis of stability of oil imports, which is reflected on the financing of external trade activity and for the support of the dinar. Forgive the translation, you guys, but that's how it plays out. But the bottom line is, oil exports and the imports are reflected in financing external trade activity and the support for the dinar. It goes on to say that the stability of Iraqi oil imports contributed to the increase in monetary reserves and was also reflected in the financing of external trade activity and support for the dinar. So I'm fairly certain it was al-Sudani that had said numerous times that the Iraqi dinar will be stronger than the dollar, and be careful to the citizens about that. So we're going to have to see what they say next. That next item that we were talking about is Masroor Barzani discusses with the U.S. Treasury official reform of the financial and banking system in Kurdistan. You have to ask yourself, well, why is that all of a sudden today? Coming off in the back of the WTO meeting that was, kind of like left open, Iraq being, showcased, and all they say is we've had discussions with 22 other countries, and we only did Timor-Leste and Comoros were the only ones that graduated, or had a session. The impact of that, they're talking about a global impact, and you didn't see anything about it. But you did see, we reported this, and I think everybody out there that owns Dinar should read the report and then go back and read other Article 4 consultations from the IMF on Iraq. Go back 20 years, I don't care, 10 years, 15, 3, 2, but you've never probably seen one that is without any negative connotations to it. At a time on the 29th, going into the end of this, that day of the last day, but WTO extended it one day. So you got to take your blinders off, think about it for a minute. There's more to the story that meets the eye. And I'm just telling you, this gentleman by the name of Brian Nelson, he is the U.S. Treasury Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. He's part and for the reform of the financial system and the banking system in Iraq. Interestingly enough, why would you be here in Iraq today talking about those items when ultimately we pretty much already knew all that? But there again, the United States Treasury is there. There was some things that happened in the background, I think late last night in Iraq, and I think that there was some United States personnel that were probably called in on the carpet. As you all know, that there's been contention with Iraq and the strategic framework agreement about military operations, et cetera, and their relationships. So could there be a component that we don't know about yet that was all of a sudden kind of like put up to where that extension for the WTO was put off? Could there have been some circumstances that were ready to or festering that could have created a problem and they needed to be resolved? Don't know. That's beyond my pay grade. But the interesting thing is that meetings are now about what? Digital transformation, financial and banking systems. And at this juncture, for these guys to be here talking about stuff, I don't think there's a coincidence. I don't know the whole story. Like again, it's not my pay grade. But the fascinating thing is if you take some of this stuff and you put the bigger picture together, you start seeing that painting come out and like, wow, there's just a lot of stuff that's happening, and we're part of that. And is the Development Road project going to go away? You guys tell me. I don't think so. Is Turkey talking about water, talking about oil, renewing the Cyan port pipeline into it going into Europe, etc.? Have they been talking about that? Of course they have. What else have they been talking about? The Development Road from the Port of Fao, all the infrastructure. They're talking about that. They're talking about that it's urgent. All right, sidebar, but this particular article talks about the electronic payment will reduce the demand for foreign currency in Iraq. This is interesting too, because I know it's a little bit bouncing around here, but this gentleman by the name of Khaled Al-Shamari confirms that the electronic payment will increase investment opportunities by depositing monies in banks, while indicating that the ATM card increased to 1 million cards during this year. Well, that's huge. Well, again, what are they trying to do? All that cash from the citizens is to get into the banking system so that they can move that money into the projects. It makes them be able to fund these projects, because that massive amount of currency that they have, which is, I think, is diminished significantly. I think the reports are varied, but keep in mind what they're trying to do is that the process of switching to electronic payments reduces cash payments with currency, and thus reduces the demand for foreign currency and increases confidence in the local currency. So the idea here is to promote a slightly less cash circumstance, which less cash in not moving and being used for loans, etc. You can see where that's going. So if it's sitting under your mattress, it's not doing anybody any favors. Okay, so ultimately 1 million cards. People know that this is happening. They know that if they don't have a banking account or they don't have a national card, I think you guys are going to figure out that at this stage of the game, probably just about 70 to 90% of the population have a national card, and this article basically spells it out. It says as of March 1st, 36 million citizens have registered on the national card since the 1st of March. Okay, the document they're talking about, they're going to work through April up to April 1st. Is that a hard date for anything? No, of course not. Just the fact is that they're giving them an allowance of time to extend the work for identification documents out to April 1, 2024. But they also have, if you guys think about it, they had a population of about 43 million in 21. They have about 46 million in 2024, and here they've already issued 36 million. And if you recall, this little article here that I just mentioned is that they increased 1 million cards during this year in 2024. So in less than 2 months, people are motivated. That's huge. So let's see, what's the next thing? Here it says the path to development to become an urgent need at the regional and global levels. Oh, okay, so this development road project has got some people ruffled because, in other words, the WTO situation wasn't quite resolved, right? Because what is that? It's about international organization in trade. And what is the development road project? It's going to be about trade coming from one end of Iraq through the whole country. And who's involved? You get the picture. So the Prime Minister of Transport Affairs, Nasser al-Assadi, confirmed today that Saturday development path or the development method has become a very urgent need at the regional and global levels. So it's not just a regional, everybody's global. So he's indicating that existence of extensive coordination and discussions with the Turkish side regarding the project. Well, Turkey wants this to go. Turkey's been in direct relations with who? Iraq. Why? Because they've got oil they want to pump out of the country. They got goods and services, and they also have water. So it says the development project has become very urgent and needs political changes in the region and ongoing wars and other impacts on waterways that transport from Europe to Asia and vice versa are in our attention. And says there's an urgency from all countries of the world to have safe corridors, a good safe transport for goods and services. And obviously, what you're seeing in different parts of the oceans, trades being disruptive, and they don't want that. And so therefore, that's why they're looking for this to they want to have good coordination. They've been in extensive discussions in respect to the development road project, and the only solution as far as they're concerned is the passage of goods in light of all political situations. They want specifically fast and furious. The Turkish side, regarding all of these development road project issues, basically is coming to the one point: a solution to pass to a safe passage for goods, and regardless of political situations. They want everybody to get involved and support the development road project, and that's a global situation. So that's pretty fascinating. Here another one, and this is more add-on to that, and the reason being is it's just serious support, because the article is basically the development path is important for Iraq, Turkey, and the countries of the region. I put in that there's also a component of electricity. We saw that today too from Jordan. Iraq needs 24/7, 365 for investors. They're going to need quality data, able to have electricity. You can't have rolling blackouts, for instance. But it says that the president of Turkey, the development road project is important for countries of the region, especially Iraq and Turkey. He's offering full support for the project, hoping it will continue. The communications department is in touch with Iraq. The president confirms that the meeting with the president of the region, Barzani, on the sidelines of the Antalya diplomatic forum, that the development road project is important for the countries of the region, especially Iraq and Turkey, and they have full support. So basically that, and along with the electricity they need, is underway. The urgent need for the project and electricity is a major focus that they have been working on for many years. So this isn't anything new, and we're going to see results. Iraq resolves the electrical connection with the Jordan, and what they expect is to enter in force within days. So the electricity we just talked about, it's expected to be enforced within days. Are they underway? Of course they are. Establishing the transmission line that connects the completed Al-Fa station in Iraq to Kuwait Wafra station. So they are basically doing exactly what they've said they were going to do, and they've been working on this stuff for years, and it's all coming to fruition. So at the end of the day, the 13th Ministerial Council or Conference of the World Trade Organization, they suggest it was the most comprehensive, fair, and multilateral trading system. It says the 13th Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization is the most comprehensive, fair, and multilateral trading system in the world. Okay, so fair enough. One of the things that I really want to focus in on was what I already said. It says the Ministerial Conference, the World Trade Organization announced the accession of the Republic of Comoros. We talked about that. The Republic of East Timor to membership in the organization. Kudos to them. The least developed countries in the world. But after 8 years, not including new members, okay, discussing the accession of 22 new members to the organization and benefiting from the multilateral trading system. That's all they said. Iraq was part of that 22 new members of the organization benefiting from the multilateral trading system. So all they mentioned in this whole thing, okay, is the discussing that there was a session of 22 new members. So all they mention is these 22 members in the organization that are benefiting from multilateral trading systems. So obviously there's a quietness from the WTO when it comes to Iraq and those other countries. And why did they do that? We can speculate on that, but the truth be told is that Iraq and other countries are probably a little bigger and would have more impact on the economic situation in the global financial system than just those two smaller countries. Not to take away from them, it's a big thing. It's a very big thing that the WTO lifted up two of the smallest lower development countries in the world into the to accession. But they didn't talk about one that's going to fix the financial system in the world. They didn't talk about Iraq. They didn't talk about the other 22. They just talked about those two. Oh, two of the 22, okay? So think about it for a little bit. Why? Well, the shocks that the World Bank we talked about. You can't just go and shock the whole world planet at the same time without having everybody ready, because that's going to cause chaos. I'm assuming that's probably got some legs to it. We'll see. So the industrial investment law, this is another thing. The industrial investment law is ready for voting. Well, so the industrial part of Iraq is going to be a big component of their future, is it not? They got to go from a market economy, from a public economy, state-owned, to a private sector situation. And so they're going to build industrial cities. And what are they going to need? They're going to need security for investors to do these things. This article, basically, the industrial investment law is ready for voting, is coming from the deputy chairman of the accession committee, Hussein Al-Sabari, announced on Saturday, today, the vote on the industrial investment law will be imminent during the upcoming session of the House of Representatives. So imminent during the upcoming session. So they're obviously slated, okay, or underway. It says that the draft law serves Iraqi industrial investors and contributes to the development of Iraqi production. He goes on to say that the law exempts industrial investors from tax liability and provides them with full support through loans. He goes on to say if the law is passed, it will change the reality of the industrial investment environment in Iraq. Was this a component they needed to hammer out? Was this last minute brinkmanship, if you will, that maybe it wasn't quite done yet and the WTO, got wind of it, or they thought it would be done and timed accordingly? I don't know. but they brought it out today. And they said it's imminent, that they're going to have that. A necessity, probably. Could that be any time? Yeah, it says it's imminent. It goes on here, it says that Barzani's advisor reveals developments in resuming the region's oil exports and the date of Erdogan's visit to Iraq. So basically Barzani and Turkey are getting ready to have a conversation with what? Agreement to process oil will begin again. Well, isn't that interesting? Isn't it? It's been what, 12 months? Or 9 to 12 months that they haven't pumped oil? How much money have they lost? Are they going to have a deal with oil? It's ready to pump. Are they going to have customs valuations? Isn't that what the WTO is about? Customs valuations. So isn't the oil that's leaving Iraq going to be part of the customs valuations? So product leaving Iraq, I don't care if it's t-shirts or sunglasses. If it's oil, it's going to be part of their customs valuations. So everyone, as far as I'm concerned, is ready to go. Iraq's been capable of flowing a lot of oil, and obviously oil pricing is at $80 a barrel, and it's not 70. So they're going to make nothing but bank. But I think that's what we're waiting for, is that's going to be part of the process, is that they're going to have to bring on that real effective exchange rate so the valuation of the oil can be set in place, and that investment law might be part of that as well. Let's go to the last thing is, I just wanted to say is that we're going to get to something that's kind of interesting, because we know that we have connections. I have people that are in my room, or our Patreon community, our Discord community. They're from all over the world, and it's fascinating that some people have, real live people that are in Iraq and other places, Saudi Arabia, Jordan. They have information. Well, one of the guys gets a hold of us, I think it was Thursday night or early Friday morning, and has basically had a little bit of a conversation. And interestingly enough, what I tried to do is to say, well, thank you for the information, but do we have any support for what you're saying in real time, in the data? And that's what we try to do where we are. And so I've kind of sat on this for a couple of days, or a day or two, and would like to say that I think there's probably some support for this, because what we expect is what you're going to see is what the central bank said today. And if you think about the central bank talking about specific things, remember the Buna platform back in January, so they launched their Buna platform to do currencies in all the different currencies that Iraq is going to be using. So anyway, my friend, he says to me, he goes by Hafid. He says, unless the conversation coming in is turned around. So it's going to be a conversation where he's addressing me. We had some text messaging, and he just decided to do me a little bit of a synopsis of where he's at, okay? He says, unless the conversation coming in is turned around, the prices on everything coming in will change, and they are anticipating that this Sunday. My words, but he's effectively writing, everything coming in, product, will change, pricing, right? Anticipation, Sunday. He goes on and says, noting that there's nothing on the news as of yet, nothing formal, fair. The news did not come out with it yet. Okay, we're good. My friend told me, his friend, okay, they are expecting it, and they have been in communication with the ministries. He, in this particular case, forgets the specific name, but he just said the ministries, right? He goes, also, they don't know the exact numbers. So the people, the businessmen, they don't know the exact numbers. Fair enough, they shouldn't. They do not know exact numbers. They are just prepared, because they've been told they will all need to be on the same page once this goes. He says, I do feel that definitely the time is coming very close. He goes, why would you change prices with the same rate? He goes, I don't know. Well, nor do I. And he goes, and regarding the audio you want me to make, I kind of prefer that you give the information and you just say that it's part of our intel, but you can mention my name. And so I did. And so that's part of that conversation with us, is he would prefer to kind of be quiet because that's just the way he is. I respect that. He says, I kind of prefer the way you speak, and if you want to post that information, or if you even want to wait and see if what's said is true Sunday. Okay. And it's Sunday right now. It's Saturday, but it's Sunday in Baghdad. So I chose to go ahead and have a comment for you guys. He goes, look, I believe what we're seeing, well, I should say not he says, but the support and the expectation of others in Iraq is getting stronger and stronger. The central bank has talked about using other currencies. I'm going to get to that. The Buna platform, clearing other currencies similar to what Iraq's talking about. The accession system being activated on all ports, dry ports, airports, first week of this month. They talk about that. They're going to use, and they're ready to use, Dinar to buy foreign currencies. We're going to see that. Cross-border payments, international trade, they're going to speak to all of that. Look, prior to any currency adjustment, pricing will need to be adjusted. Markets will align. When will the global markets align again, which is the safest time for them to do it? I believe that's going to be sometime late Sunday. Forex opens Eastern Standard Time somewhere around 5 p.m., I think. Is that a safe time? Yeah. Is it the only time? No. Is it going to be the time? I have no idea, but we're going to try and see if it lines up. To have price changing and to have the data that we're going to come back, for me to say what our dear friend Hafid has told me in his view from his contacts in Iraq, from business owners, I only say it because of I feel that there's support for being able to do that. I think there's some stuff that's in writing, and I think it comes from the Central Bank of Iraq. And I think we can talk too also about recent Buna platform data. But in this particular case, today the Iraqi Central Bank confirms the provision of 5 foreign currencies as an alternative to the dollar for merchants. And they say that the central bank has provided 5 alternative currencies to the dollar for merchants to use in purchasing goods from other countries using each country's currency through the bank. Okay, he says the central bank provided other foreign currencies to Iraqis, which are the euro, the Chinese yuan, the Turkish lira, the Emirati dirham, and the Indian rupee. These currencies have become available to merchants for the purpose of financing foreign trade. When a merchant imports goods from China, for instance, he can now pay the Iraqi dinar to the Iraqi bank, and through the bank, the amount will be paid to Chinese company in the factory in the Chinese currency. It's fascinating, right? So in other words, we can use the dinar now, cross-border payments, international, and through the bank will be paid to Chinese companies. So you just love it. It says it all right there. So check out that article in our room. Iraqi Central Bank confirms the provision. I think it's on the CBI's website too, by the way. 5 foreign currencies as an alternative to the dollar for the merchant, so you can get that. And then remember, here's some of my bits and pieces, okay? Look, merchants will now be able to use the dinar to pay for foreign currency to buy international products. That is the use of dinar into foreign currency for cross-border payments. I would imagine that there will be changes to Iraq's currency that will be reflective of the real value of the IQD. So in other words, if you're going to be using, which they haven't been, Iraq dinar at 1310 to purchase other foreign currencies, they've never done that before at 1310. Now they're saying that they can do that but they're going to be able to use the dinar. 1310 exchange rate has never been a international exchange rate that crosses borders, as far as I can tell. But anyway, they told us that earlier this month there would be an activation of the accession system in the first week of the month at the port of Qasr. They already have been successful using the international airport and the dry port. The last link of the internationalism is starting in Iraq. The last link, to me, is starting now. There will be a need to have a factual data with certification of origin and invoice. So there's a requirement. People at the borders, when they do bring in goods and services, they are going to have factual data. They're going to have a certification of the origin and invoice. So you can't just come in and say, well, this was valued at 20,000 when the true value is at 100,000. They're not getting taxed on that. That's going away. They have to have, again, the factual data. Basically, what is it? It's considered to be pricings of goods and services. So prices are going to have to change. So if in fact there is a real effective exchange rate, because these guys are going to have to show up at the certificate with a certificate of origin and an invoice of the true value of what the products and what the cost is in dinar to the dollar or the euro or the yuan or the lira or whatever, they're going to have that. And so basically, when the time's right, as our good friend said, the expectation is that they're going to have to know that. And the business owners in Iraq are going to have to know that. And I think that what we're seeing in the internet, it's not just him, there's other people. There's other people in the internet that are talking about the pricing changes. I don't give them any slack on this particular one, because why? Because I just showed you some support from the Central Bank of Iraq. It's specifically right here that they're talking about using these other currencies. And so in dinar, that's coming from the Central Bank of Iraq. So obviously there's something that's happening because they've never done it before, and it's a change. I think it's really good. So basically, if you go back a little bit, not a very long time, just at a month, not even a full month and a half, Buna platform ceases system to ease cross-border payments in Arab region. And what are they talking about? They are going to have 160 countries. They had a big symposium, World Government Summit, WGS 2024. They highlighted that the UAE's pivotal role as a global economic hub in promoting regional and integration, kind of like the WTO talked about, and establishing connections with key trading partners. Benefits. The Buna platform, multi-currency clearing and settlement designed to streamline cross-border transactions. Central Bank of Iraq just told Iraq that you guys can use dinar to buy multiple currencies, multi-currencies, to do what? Clearing and settlement in the systems. With what? Accurate and factual data. These two things right here are solidifying that there's something that's happening. There's support for Hafid's data and those other people that are out there that have their own stories. This data is actually supporting that, which is, I think, is great. And to be fair, he said, let's just wait and find out. I think we're going to wait and find out. We're probably not going to wait very long to find out if, in fact, this holds true, because tomorrow's Sunday and there's only 24 hours in the day. So anyway, it says that back on today, the Central Bank of Iraq confirms that it has provided those 5 alternative currencies. And again, it says they now can pay the Iraqi dinar to the bank, and through the bank, the amount of the paid monies will go to the Chinese company, for instance. And that's a reiteration of it all. But to be fair, the Buna platform's digital transformation is happening before our eyes. The clearing and settlement, cross-border transactions, the automated customs systems are all in place, and they basically are massive. So I thank you very much for being with me this evening. Appreciate everybody. And by the way, you guys can go to the more and see some of the links that we have. I've given you our details for Patreon access for those new folks who can't find us. So check that out. And again, just check out the details. I think you'll be able to find if you want to help support, keep this channel moving forward. But I really appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed the content, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel or join us at the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.